This is part 2 in the series How to Draw a Realistic Face. In part 1, I went over my technique for drawing realistic eyes, a nose, a realistic mouth. So if you missed part 1, the link will be in the description. The first thing I'm doing now is I'm trying to add the base layer. I'm going ahead with my HB pencil to add this layer. You see, normally I would use my 2B pencil to create the base layer, but the face is not really dark, it's actually light. So I'm using my HB pencil instead. You must have gotten it by now. The darker the face, the darker the pencil you would use for the base layer. After laying down that very light layer, I'm dipping my brush into graphite powder and I'm blending those strokes that I have already created. If you don't have graphite powder or if you don't have brushes, you can use a tissue paper instead to blend this. In fact, I would even argue that it's best to use a tissue paper in this situation because this area is actually pretty large, and for large areas, the tissue paper is best. Now, take note of this when you are using the brush to blend. After you dip the brush into your charcoal powder or into your graphite powder, make sure that you dust away the excess charcoal powder. It is very important that you dust off the excess powder before you blend it with the paper. The reason is because if you don't dust away the excess powder, you might bring too much powder to the paper and that would ruin your drawing. When you're blending, also remember that you want to blend in circular motions. When you blend in circular motions, things would look a lot smoother, I assure you that. And of course, this is in no way the only way to shade a face. In fact, there are many other ways you can use to shade a face, but this is the method I find most beneficial for me. So if you like it, come on, use it. Now, watch what I am doing. I'm using my charcoal pencil to create a dark line around the face. This line will represent the hair. But the reason why I'm actually creating the line at this stage is so that I will be able to judge my values, to be able to know if I have to go darker with the face. And by the look of things, the face is still pretty white, so I will have to go darker with the face. I only know this because I have compared the darkness of the face to the darkness of the charcoal that I created. So I'm using the brush to spread some of that charcoal onto the face to make the face darker. Now I don't want to go too dark with the face, and this is the reason why I keep layering with my HB pencil. After I layer with my HB pencil, I will dip my brush into graphite powder and blend with that. If I notice that I have to go darker with things and that the HB pencil is too light, simple, I will just go with my 2B pencil or my 4B pencil to add darker layers, and of course I will still blend with my graphite powder. Gosh, I already sound like a broken record, but I want you to understand that I am not simply using my brush to create these layers, I'm also dipping it into powder. Now this is where many people would get confused and wonder what to do, because I'm mentioning graphite powder, I'm mentioning charcoal powder. So which exactly do you use to blend the face? Do you use a graphite powder or do you use charcoal powder? Well, you see, the answer depends on what exactly you are drawing. On this left side of the face, the skin is pretty white, it's almost white, so I'm using a graphite powder to blend that instead because graphite is not that dark. But on the left area, that side is actually a lot darker, so I'll be blending with my charcoal powder instead. So it goes like this: darker areas require charcoal powder, lighter areas require graphite powder. Now on the other side of the face, the skin is actually darker, and since it is darker, I would use my charcoal powder to blend the strokes. And to be honest, this is exactly all what I do to create my tones. I layer with my graphite pencil and then I blend with my graphite powder or charcoal powder, depending on how dark the area is. When you are shading large areas like I am now, one tip that would really help you is if you use the side of the pencil to shade. You see, most beginners use the tip of their pencil to shade, and that is not bad actually, but it will not allow you to get smooth shading. This is the reason why I always advise beginners to expose the lead or to expose the graphite at the top of your pencil and then use the side of your pencil to shade. Now I want you to observe this carefully. It's not easy to blend large areas using the brush. If you use a brush or a blending stump to blend large areas, you could easily get tiny blotches and dark spots everywhere. This is the reason why I always suggest you use a tissue paper to blend large areas. If you use a tissue paper to blend, you are bound to get smooth results. There is no denying that fact. So, if you notice that your drawings are not as smooth as you would want them to be, the solution is very simple. Use a tissue paper to blend. After blending the forehead, it looks kind of flat. There are no shadows, no highlights, and it looks very dull. To make the forehead pop, what I'm doing now is I'm using my 2B pencil to add shadows at the sides of the forehead. And of course, after I've already realized the smoothness of the tissue paper, I'm using the tissue paper to blend the lines I've created. Now you see, the graphite pencil cannot go as dark as I want them to be. So what I'm doing now is I'm drawing the hairline with my charcoal. As I did with the cheeks, drawing the hairline with my charcoal will allow me to judge my values. I'll be able to know if I have to go darker at this stage. Now that I've already drawn the hairline, I can see that the forehead was very white. The forehead is still light and I have to add more shading to darken the forehead. And one great thing about using charcoal is that I don't necessarily have to add another shading with graphite pencil. All I have to do is to use the darkness from the charcoal and spread it all over the forehead to darken it. After that, all I simply do is I continue to add more layers. I shade with my graphite pencil and I blend with powder. One mistake I see many beginners make when they draw the hair is that they use a dark pencil to draw the hair at the early stage of the drawing. What you want to do is that you want to be different. You want to use a light pencil to start your strokes when you are drawing the hair. Slowly gradient your strokes from the darkest areas to the lightest part. It's like you're creating a gradient. When you create a gradient in your hair drawing, things would look a lot better. I promise you this. You don't want to create back and forth motions that start at the same place and stop at the same place. Rather, you want to feather your strokes like you're flicking. After creating those light strokes with my graphite pencil, I'm using my blending stump to blend that out. Now, you notice that I actually love using the brush to blend. But the reason why I'm not using a brush or a tissue paper, but a blending stump to blend in this area is because I want the lines to show through. If I use the brush or a tissue paper, it will smoothen out the strokes, it will hide the lines. And like I said, I don't want to hide these lines, I want the lines to show. Again, even though I'm blending, I am still making sure that I am feathering my strokes from the darkest part to the light part. Now you would notice that almost immediately, I'm going with my 2B charcoal pencil to darken the hair more. Now you want to be careful when you are drawing with charcoal pencil. Charcoal pencil can easily get your hair drawing looking very dark. So you want to go gradually, go light. Don't add too much pressure at the beginning with the charcoal. Shade lightly with the charcoal pencil and you can gradually increase the darkness. To darken the hair, I'll be using my 6B charcoal pencil to add more darkness. So don't go dark at once. Slowly increase the darkness over time. And of course, I'll be blending that with my blending stump. You see, when it comes to drawing the hair, you want to remember that you have to focus on one section at a time. If you try to draw all the areas of the hair at once, you could easily get confused and overwhelmed. You just have to divide the hair into individual sections, individual clumps. Then you can draw the motion, draw the waves of the hair. After you have divided the different sections of the hair, you can then pick one section, finish off that section, shade it, make it look as beautiful as you can, then move on to the next one. This would help you better than trying to draw the whole clump of the hair at once. One sure way to fail at drawing the hair is trying to draw all the strands. I can assure you, you'll be better off learning how to fly than trying to draw all the strands of the hair correctly. You see, I should know this because I have already tried drawing all the strands of the hair at once, and I can tell you this, it is futile. You will end up discouraging yourselves. Rather, what I want you to do is just focus on the shadows. Outline where the shadows are in the hair, outline where the highlights are. Once you are able to get the shadows, get the highlights in a lock of the hair, the rest is history. Another really important tip that can make or break your hair drawing is if your pencils are not properly sharpened. Seriously, I could not count the amount of time I actually brought out the knife to sharpen my charcoal pencil. You cannot get away with not sharpening your charcoal pencil. You see, it's very easy to make it without sharpening your graphite pencil. But when it comes to charcoal, you have to remember to sharpen the charcoal pencil. If not, you will ruin the crispness of the drawing. It will not get as sharp as you want it to be. So no matter how daunting or challenging it may be to take out the sharpener and sharpen your pencil, you really have to do it, because realistic drawing doesn't come easy. No one said it would. Now I'm just going ahead to create the hair strands and the flyaway hairs of the hair. You see, if you notice that your hair drawing is like one big block shape without any flow, without any motion, without the waves, one thing that can help to take your hair drawing to the next level is if you add some really quality flyaway hairs to your drawing. Some of the hair strands in my reference were pretty thick and dark, but most times this is not the case. I would advise that you use a graphite pencil to create these hair strands so that you can keep things pretty light. And after you have created the hair strands, blend that with your brush or your tissue paper so that it is fuzzy and it rhymes and it fits with the hair more. If you'd like to get a more in-depth training on how you can draw realistic looking hairs, do this. Click the video on the screen now to learn about my technique for drawing realistic hairs. Click the second video to watch the part 1 on how I drew the eyes, how I drew the nose and the mouth in this drawing. Watch these and I'll see you there.